Whether you believe in hustle culture or not, most salespeople are not working 40 hours a week to make good money. They're working much more. So to really look back and say, is it worth it for me to put my money into this 401k that's going to force me to work until I'm 65, into the stock market that's going to ebb and flow in relation to my income, which it should do it should strengthen during downturns of the economy. So when your income goes down, your investments actually do better.
Welcome to Spur Equity's Spur Your Wealth podcast, your ultimate guide to passive income through real estate investing. Join us as we together discover the secrets of building wealth one passive investment at a time.
From expert insights to inspiring success stories, this podcast will inspire you and empower you to take control of your family's financial future so you can live life on your own terms.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Spur Equity's Spur Your Wealth podcast. I'm your host today, Param Singh with Spur Equity. As you guys know, on the Spur Your Wealth podcast, what we aim to do is to bring successful investors, experts, sponsors, thought leaders on our podcast to share their story and the secrets to investing, and so we can all stand to benefit from their experience. And so on today's podcast, we're excited to have Justin. Justin is a real estate sales professional who was a top 5% performer most of his career. But then he realized he was transactionally rich, but not wealthy, and so started investing in commercial real estate with the goal of replacing his sales income with passive income within 10 years. And now he educates other sales professionals on how they can do the same. So really excited to have you on our show, Justin. I know we're going to have a lot of sales professionals and agents and other folks that resonate with your story. So this is going to be exciting. So really looking forward to the insight that you bring to today's episode.
Hey, Param, man, I am so excited to be here with you. And I know your partner was stepping in and out earlier today. So I'm excited to be on the journey and excited to see what this episode can become and who out there gets impacted by it.
Awesome. No, this is great. So let's start. Just, give us a little bit of a background, right? So tell us about your journey. Tell us when you started and your sales career and what led you to have that little aha moment, right? That, hey, I got to do something different.
Yeah. So, as you alluded in the intro, when I was 18, I actually got my real estate license. I was always good at selling stuff in like a retail sense, right? I was the top salesperson, like GNC, and I sold home gyms at other fitness stores and stuff like that. So I knew that I at least had a pretty good base of sales, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed getting bonuses and commissions and getting paid what I felt like I was worth and the value that I brought. So when I was growing up in the Bay Area of California, and homes are very expensive there, real estate was a very appealing thing to start selling because anybody can do the math on the napkin and say, oh my God, I get 3% of this. I got to sell one house a year and I'm pretty good. And it's a lot more complex than that. But I was 18 and I figured this is what I'm going to do. So I got my real estate license when I was 18 and I bombed. I sucked real bad. I was really bad at the job. I actually went 6 months without selling or listing a single property. I cold called all day, and real estate sales is a little bit unique in other sales roles in that there's no base. Nobody's paying you. So if you don't sell, you don't do anything. And luckily I was living with my parents, I was 18 years old, and it was 6 months almost to the date. And I remember it was 7 p.m. in the office. And I took my headset off, and I remember feeling that little dent that you have on your headset. If anybody cold calls or does sales out there, you have that, or plays Xbox or whatever, you got that dent on your hair. And I remember feeling that thing and thinking, man, I've been cold calling all day, every day for 6 months, and I've got nothing. This is the most ridiculous thing. And I already started thinking of excuses I was going to tell people as to why I was out of the business, because I pretty much just told them, this is not for me, and I'm done. And at that time, I refreshed my computer and I saw one more lead pop up, which was like a Craigslist posting or something like that.
Sure.
And I decided I would make one more cold call and that would be it for the rest of my life. I would never cold call again or never do another sales role again. Called that lady, first and only person to tell me yes on the phones there. And I ended up listing her home, selling that and buying her next home with her. Ended up being a $60,000 commission to me after taxes and fees and everything. So as an 18-year-old kid, this is over 10 years ago at this point, 60 grand, that puts some juice in you. So,
Sure.
I went all in, and ever since then, I rose within the next 12 months. I was in, the Century Club there, President's Club, top 5% and top producer. So I was making a ton of money, but I realized one day I was transactionally rich and I had no control of my time. And even when I was off, I was never really off. I was always thinking about work. I was always thinking about the next deal. I was always stressed out when my phone rang that, oh, this is a deal falling apart, or oh my God, what could be happening now? And I realized I didn't have that freedom. I was sacrificing my relationships. I was sacrificing my hobbies, my health and fitness, which things that I really value started to decline. And I realized I had to do something else. I wanted to make the kind of money I was making, but I didn't want to work for 40 more years. Yeah. So started looking into investing. I looked through stocks and our IRAs and 401ks and realized none of those were for me for the reasons that most people kind of who are probably listening to this podcast have realized. So started looking into real estate, and commercial real estate really checked those boxes for me. It gave me a tangible, feasible, very realistic roadmap to replace my income very fast. And so I dove in both feet. And that was about 4 years ago. And it's been the best journey ever since.
That's great. So thank you for sharing that. And as you're talking, like I'm reminiscing about the conversations that I've had with Rav, right? Because he's a real estate broker. He's been a broker for 15 plus years. And, he moved from one industry, like he was a graphic designer, and then he moved to real estate thinking like, all right, I'm going to do something in real estate. He was, his journey was very similar in that like he got his real estate license and he was thinking he was going to use it to like flip houses.
Yeah,
and he,
sure.
Same thing. He like failed. He couldn't, everybody from California was buying houses. He couldn't like land a deal. And then he's like, all right, let me just start selling houses. I have the license, so let me start selling. And so same thing. He struggled a lot, but he kept at it. Ultimately, then he became, a commercial broker, and then like, top, person in all of hospitality across the globe. So, or across the country. So, I mean, very, very similar, right? And I have had these same conversations with him around, like, yeah, you're making good money, but it also comes in spurts, right? And you don't know when that next one. So it could be feast or famine kind of scenario, and you're always looking for the next kill, right? You eat what you kill, right? That's how he puts it, right? And so there's no stability and you gotta work at it. And we take vacations together. So my family and his family, we've taken vacations together, and there's so many times, same thing, like his phone will ring and it's like, oh crap.
Yeah.
What now? Like what's gonna like kill this deal that I've been cultivating for the last 6 months or 8 months? And he also does land. And so he's like, these deals are like a year in, right? These listings and stuff. And then all of a sudden he's spending all this money on marketing from his pocket. And then ultimately like something will fall through and he's like, oh shit, And so his when me and him partnered up, it was the same thing. He's like, dude, this is great. Like I know I do this well, but I also know that my body and my mentality can't continue to sustain this forever. Right. Because it's such a high stress scenario. And then, he's on vacations and he's, taking time away from his family. Right. And trying to get a signal. I remember we were camping one day and he was trying to get a signal because we were in like this 60 acres in Texas, and he's trying to get a signal, trying to get this deal closed.
Yeah. And I've done plenty of those.
Man, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah. Right? I bought plenty of, prepaid phones because we were out of the country or whatever. And I'm just like, I just need, 30 minutes to talk to this and get an update, and as much as you do your best to check out and say, hey, I'm going to rest and relax, you just can't help but these things eat away at you. So very similar stories. I think anybody who's in sales really understands, that journey and that struggle of, man, I make great money, I ride these highs, and in the back of your mind, you just know that those highs won't always be there. And so you need something to level that out and something to essentially buy your time backwards, essentially buying off years that you need to keep this pace up. So totally agree. Same.
And a peace of mind, right? Like that, hey, if I don't close this deal, that doesn't mean that my lifestyle's in jeopardy, or like, my family can't eat, right? So those things are definitely stress. And so if you have passive income on the side, it's like, all right, it's okay. We got stuff coming in, and then you're in a position where if you want to continue working, cause like if you have that passion for sales and then you're essentially doing it because you want to, not because you have to. And that's a very different mentality, right? Because then you're like, all right, I'll do 3-4 deals a year, and then I got my passive stuff. And so you're the boss of your own time, right? You got that you're buying that peace of mind, right? Essentially. And so that's excellent. And I think that resonates with a lot of different people. It resonates with me because, from a IT background, professional, working in the corporate world, same thing. I didn't see myself working, for 40 years and so buying that back, getting that back and saying, okay, now I'm living life on my own terms kind of scenario. It's definitely liberating, right? Because then you do what you want rather than the things that you feel like you have to do.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So talk to me about, you mentioned that, you're looking to replace your income in 0 to 10 or 0 to 5 or 10 years. And then you're also, within your network, you're talking to other sales professionals, right? That have some of those same pain points. So talk to me about, and talk to, folks on the episode here that are listening. What are those pain points, right? What are those pain points and challenges that you guys as sales professionals kind of look at, see?
Yeah.
And how does your formula, right, what you've been able to apply to yourself, how does that formula translate to someone who may be in the same position, and what they can do to kind of get started down that path?
Yeah, so there's some major pain points that are more unique to salespeople than to other industries. And not that other people don't feel it, but it's maybe just an amplified pain for sales folks. And the first one is that inconsistency in income, right? So you have your really high months, you have your really low months. And when you do things like passive income or you have more consistent bases, the first goal is, hey, how can we level this out to where I at least have a pretty good baseline of average money that I'm going to make every single month, and my good months are just kind of on top of that, and my low months are just, it's okay, it's kind of gravy on top of what I'm already having anyways. The second is more susceptibility to downturns and recessions. Now, when you invest in things like the public markets, which is what you're investing in if you're in 401k, your IRAs, or you're in stocks or mutual funds, your investments are going to decline when the market declines. And what else is going to decline is your income. And a lot of top producers, a lot of top salespeople, we don't blame external forces for our performance, and that's a huge strength. But we cannot help that when customers lose their jobs or companies slash budgets or people get laid off, buying activity decreases. So when your income falls because of recessionary periods, I don't want your investments also falling. Your investments actually should be in things that historically do well, things like apartments and self-storage and the assets that we've spoken about before we started recording. And another thing is your time to burnout is very, very accelerated when you're in sales. You take a 30-year-old salesperson who's been doing it since they were 20 and somebody who's 30 maybe in just the corporate world doing it since they were 20, and the 30-year-old is just going to be tired. The salesperson, your hours are longer. And no matter whether that's right or wrong, or whether you believe in hustle culture or not, most salespeople are not working 40 hours a week to make good money. They're working much more. So to really look back and say, is it worth it for me to put my money into this 401k that's going to force me to work until I'm 65, into the stock market that's going to ebb and flow in relation to my income, which it should do it should strengthen during downturns of the economy. Yeah. So when your income goes down, your investments actually do better. And so there were a lot of those things where traditional investing did not give me that path to freedom fast. I don't believe in waiting till I'm 60 or 70, or who knows what the age will be at that time, right? I mean, France just increased their ages. America's running out of money. You think Social Security is going to help you, you're not looking at the numbers, right? So inflation is just wiping people out at this point. So I think there are some of those pain points that salespeople feel a little bit more amplified, but there's also a greater issue in this country of inflation wiping out the average, 4% rule that kind of financial institutions touts, and nobody wants to work till they're 70 anymore. The jobs are harder. People are tired. People are getting sick of it. So those are a couple of the pain points that are just amplified when you're in sales, but those are pain points that are amplified on an already big problem that we have in this country when it comes to finances and retirement and financial health and education.
That's great. So, all of those points, I mean, we all feel it and I know that our listeners that are listening, they're shaking their head as well. Like,
Yeah.
they're nodding their head. Like, that's exactly what we feel. And, especially the last few years, right? Especially the inflation piece of it, it's gotten so exacerbated that like, even people that are getting, like I was in this scenario, I was, making a good salary.
Yeah.
Right. And I was making a good salary, but my percent increases or my raises didn't even beat out inflation.
Yep.
Right. And so I'm actually working harder and in fact making less money.
Exactly.
Right. Because my dollar goes only so far. And so if you're thinking, oh, I'm getting a 5% raise or, a few percent raise and a bonus here and there, that's worth less and less and less. And so in fact, I did the numbers. I'm like, wow, like I'm actually making less money.
Yep.
And I'm working harder and I'm getting more responsibility and more things that I need to do and take time away from my family. Like I was in the same boat. I still remember my aha moment was several years ago, when I started this journey, I think it was in Mexico. I was on a beach somewhere with my family. Kids are young. And every day I had to go back to the hotel room and log into my computer and do a meeting or like check email or respond, even though I was on vacation. I was
for
like,
less
but
money.
I have all these responsibilities. Yeah. And so I'm
less
like,
net money.
what the hell am I doing? Like I'm taking a vacation and I should be there with my family on the beach, but I'm sitting here. And that's what this company and this corporate structure values, right? They value folks that are put the work first. And I'm like, that's not priority for me. My priority is my family and my own health and well-being. And so that's when I said, all right, we got to do something different. And so that, it doesn't happen overnight, right? That's the other thing that people need to realize, that you have to put these things in motion with the horizon of, okay, in 5 years or 7 years or 10 years, I'll be in that spot where I can, walk away. Right. And so some people think like, they look at, because I put it out earlier this year that, hey, I'm leaving my job. I left and I was a, director level consulting company. So making good money. And they're like, oh, wow, he just left and started doing real estate. Maybe I'll do the same. I'm like, no, I started doing that like 6 years ago. Like, I had to put in the sacrifice. It's like, if you want that time back, you have to put in some sacrifice. There's a mindset shift that like, I'm working 40, 50, 60 hours in my day job, but I was also putting in more hours, right? And setting up this like, this path to passive income. And, it took 5-6 years to get to a place where I felt comfortable enough to say, okay, I can now move away and I've got enough here to sustain me. And I'm going to keep growing that, obviously. But I was at a point where I couldn't keep, in Punjabi, we say this, have a saying of keeping your two legs in two different areas, right? You just can't sustain yourself. And so I had to make the choice. And so I was like, all right, there's enough momentum and potential here that I can walk away from a high W-2. But people don't realize like it takes time. You got to think this through and you got to action it. And then, sow the seed essentially. And you did the same. So, talk about kind of the mindset shift that you had. So one, during the cold calling phases, right? It was easy for you to like give up after 1 month or 2 months or 3 months, but you kept at it. And like, you had that like moment of like, man, I'm just going to walk away. But then something kind of, that excitement of that sale kind of kept you in there. But what was the mindset shift that you had to take to basically forge your own path, right?
Yeah, so there's a couple things, and just really quick to double back to what you were saying. If you're sitting there right now and you're feeling like, oh, I don't mind working, I don't mind putting in the hours, I want to achieve certain things, and I don't mind making that sacrifice right now. I was the same way. And just like you said, in 10 years, will that be what it is?
Yeah.
Because the decision you make today is really buying you, that 7-10 years from now. So if you start in 10 years, okay, now you got another 10 to go by the time you kind of hit that breaking point. So just thinking ahead of what you're going to want. Are you going to have a family at that point? Are you going to have other priorities that you want to take care of? So I think that's a really important one, is like future pace yourself and know what you want 10 years down the road and start, today, and that'll get you there.
Yeah.
But the mindset shift was really big because First thing is, if I would not have made that final call, I would not have pursued a career in sales. I would not, I don't know what I would be doing right now. I have no idea. I wouldn't have been burnt out by the sales game enough to force me into this journey that I'm on right now. So what that really did for my mindset was to understand it's not so much the outcome that you need to be focused on, it's the process. Reverse engineer what you want to happen. And in sales, you can't always control things. You can say, hey, I want to close, one deal a month. And that's great, but you don't really control that. You control your output. And if you reverse engineer that, you can say, okay, well, that means I need to make 50 calls a day. You can control making 50 calls a day, but you can't really control how many deals that ends up getting you. You can practice, you can increase your skills, to increase your odds. But if it was as simple as that, you say, okay, I'll close 2 a month. I'll close 3 a month. You just put out whatever number it's out there. So when you put a process in motion, first thing is you always are going to have to put in more effort than you think it's going to take. And second, it's going to have to be for longer than you think it's going to take. If you would have told me in my beginning sales career that I would have to cold call every day for 6 months straight before I got my first deal, probably wouldn't have done it. So luckily I was just ignorant and I just did it. But you're going to have to do the process for harder than you think and for longer than you think. But if you work the process, the outcome is inevitable. It's just tweaking the process along the way if you need to, but sticking to that process. So that was a really big shift. And I take that, from my sales career. I take that when I mentor salespeople. I take that when I tell people about investing, because I do kind of the same thing now. I prospect, I look for investors, I look for deals. Some weeks I get nothing. Some months I get nothing. And all of a sudden, I'll get somebody from our podcast to say, hey man, I just heard this podcast episode, really loved it. Would love to get on a call with you. Like, man, I was just thinking about shutting that down because I haven't gotten anything for 2-3 months from it. But then the floodgates will open. So really putting that process in place and sticking to it, and your outcome is going to be inevitable in whatever it is.
Yeah, I love that. Like, trust the process, right? So the other thing that, you mentioned mentorship, like you mentor folks. And so we're really big on education as well. The thing that I've found that helped me, right? Because like a lot of times, like we're going in it blind, right? We're going in it, we're like, all right, we'll figure it out. And I really respect people that do that, right? They just kind of jump in. I'm not that way.
Yeah.
I'm more like analytical. I need data. I need information before I jump in. And so the other extreme is not good either, right? Where you're getting knowledge and you're not actioning anything.
Sure.
And so that's where, I think partnerships really work. Like me and Rav are similar in a lot of respects, but that's what makes us different. Like I'm very like analytical. He's more like, let's jump in, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. And he has that confidence enough to be like, we're not going to lose anything. If anything, if we fail, we learn something, and we'll fail faster. We'll learn faster. Right. And so I love that, I love that aspect of it. And so I think what's helped me is partnerships and what Rav and I have done since then is surround ourselves with people that are maybe 3, 4, 5 years ahead of where we are today in the trajectory of where we want to go. And so we can learn from their successes and their failures. And I love the real estate industry, whether you're talking about, sales and brokerage, or you're talking about investors and sponsors. And the thing is, there's this idea of abundance. Yeah. And everyone's willing to share, right? And I love that, where, we're actually learning so much just by being, being around people that are doing something similar. That are not kind of holding their cards close to the vest. They're like, hey, this is, because like you said, like a lot of this stuff is like, it's not rocket science. You just got to put in the time. You got to have the process. You got to trust the process and work the process, and eventually you'll be successful. I not laugh, but like, I sometimes, when we put a deal out there, like we put an offering out there, like, hey, this is, a apartment complex that we're moving forward with or whatever. People are like, wow, man, like you're bringing these deals, like when's the next one? And what they don't recognize is that we've said no to like 25 of them. Yeah. Right. Before saying yes to one of them. So there's a lot of work that goes into finding a good deal that's going to be successful. But again, if you put those processes in place and understand what you're looking for, understand your criteria, then you're going to be more successful. But yeah, I think mentorship, partnerships with folks that know very well what they're doing and they have a good track record, that has helped us considerably, right? Kind of navigate where we want to be and where we want to go.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And that's the one thing that's really cool about the commercial space too, is those partnerships are really abundant because the deals are really big. So it's okay. You can have 3, 4, 5 different teams and groups working on a deal that's, 60, 70 million bucks. Okay, if you're flipping a home and it's 200 grand, not really, you maybe have one partner or so. It's not really worth everybody's time to get in on it. But yeah, and that's actually how, we know each other, is because we pay for education and mentorship and access. And, I'm sure me and you have both paid well into the 6 figures to advance ourselves professionally and personally. And that's just part of the game. And that's how we get ahead in this. So yeah, I like it. I'm very similar in that mindset.
So Justin, talk to me a little bit. We haven't even dived into kind of some of the projects that you're doing. So can you tell us a little bit about your investment strategies? What do you look for? What are you currently, what's your buy box and what's your criteria? Because again, ultimately we're beholden to and fiduciary to our investors. And so we evaluate tons of deals, but the ones that we bring to the table. Talk to me about what kind of projects you're doing, what kind of risk profile you're looking at, especially in this market, right?
Sure. Yeah. So, I believe that there's really, I had a presentation and it was one of the better presentations we've done, and it's called 6 Steps to 6 Figures in Passive Income. And really the biggest key takeaway on there, and if anybody wants that, I'll get my info at the end of the show. I'll just send it your way. But essentially the biggest steps are, you have to grow before you cash flow, essentially is what I look at. So unless you have a pretty significant amount of cash to invest today, chances are that 7, 8, 9% turnkey property isn't going to do it for you. If you put in 100 grand into a turnkey property, it's 7, 8%, 7 grand a year. Okay, that's not nothing, but it's not, I'm out of here money, right? It's not you know what money. So we balance, especially
since now with what's happening in the economy, we're actually getting 4.5%, 5% up to 6%. If you're talking about like a bank CD and stuff like that. So why would I do work to get a 7, 8% versus, right? So I love that mentality, right? Looking at growth and exponential.
It's that growth. And what I like to say is, I had this business mentor, and the best kind of one-liner, I love these little one-liners he gives me, is amateurs add and professionals multiply. So what are the ways that you can multiply your wealth before you're ready to totally let off the gas? And okay, I could throw it in a CD and it doesn't matter, because now I'm getting 5, 6, 7% of 8 million, 9 million. Now, okay, that's real money. That's real impact money. So we believe that our investments have to have 2 key profiles. There has to be equity upside and cash flow for risk management. Now, again, your cash flows are not going to be really what makes most of the deals right now. You're probably getting between 6 and 8% total average annualized on the deal. So again, not life-changing money, but cash flow to us is really a defensive metric. It's nice to have. It's nice to sustain the property and have a little bit extra, but that's really not where you're making the money. The very, very ultra wealthy invest in real estate for appreciation and depreciation, really. So cash flow is a defensive metric. So we want to play a little bit of defense, but we also have to have that equity upside. And we only invest in assets that have historically done well during recessions, or we believe will do well during recessions. So multifamily is one of those, apartment buildings, self-storage. We talked about that before we started the show. And actually Airbnbs. Right now we have an Airbnb fund that's doing really well. And we have a good hypothesis that Airbnbs and those short-term rentals are kind of the recession step down to large hotel chains right now. And they're performing extremely well. So we play a little bit of defense and a little bit of offense, but we realize that you have to go out into some equity plays to really make this lifestyle happen in a pretty quick and reasonable amount of time. So that's kind of our buy box. We're really strict on what we do. I know you said, about 1 in every 25 deals you guys look at. Yeah, I think this last year, it was close to about 1 in every 77 we looked at. And these are deals that are already vetted, like operators have brought us and said, hey, will you raise money here? just because we have that criteria that we don't really spray from, and we have certain
Yeah.
criteria for the partnerships that we create. So have to be very picky. We do typically about 2 to 3 deals a year, and that's about where we want to keep it.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, that's very in line with our business as well. And I love what you said. I mean, you articulated really well. Sometimes it's hard to inform an investor that, hey, this 5, 6, 8%, it's really not going to make a material difference, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's really at the refinance or at the sale where the large proceeds of the returns are going to be coming from. And so that's the business plan is all, focused on that, not really. I mean, yeah, like you said, cash flow is a defensive tactic, right? But especially in this economy, like we've had properties, I mean, where we've stopped the distribution, right? Because we had to actually hedge against, the inflationary, kind of impacts that we've had on our operations, and saying, okay, hey, we're going to hold back distributions and cash flow because we want to keep these reserves because we want to come out whole on the other side. And so, again, investors understand that once you kind of explain it, but we do have some folks that are only looking for that cash flow, and there's two mechanisms, and I love, again, you articulated really well that there's wealth creation, which is all about growth, which is exactly what you said. It's about getting to a place where we have enough cash that if we invest passively and we're looking at just riding that wave, from a cash flow perspective to fund our lifestyle. But you got to get to that point first. You got to get to that point where you have, a substantial amount of cash to be able to invest. And so right now our focus is on growth creation or wealth creation. Once you get to that point, then you can focus on cash flowing, buy and hold assets, for example, and say, okay, I'm going to put everything in something that's very attractive, Class A properties if it's still real estate, and it's going to cash flow, a nice 10, 11%, and that's it. That's all I care about. Low risk, and it's just now I'm just getting a regular income. But that's in the wealth preservation, kind of mode, not creation mode. So you're absolutely right. That's the same kind of guidance that we've given our folks. And then if you do enough of these growth deals, and you said about multiplying cash flow, multiplying your return. If you do multiplication is just adding things multiple times, right? Yeah. And if you're multiplying your return multiple times, then you're looking at exponential growth. Yep. So if you look at 4 deals, 5 deals where you've invested $100,000, which you've doubled. Yep. And then you double again, then you can quickly see that after 5 deals, you turn that 100,000 into 1.6 million. Yeah. Right. Quick. So just in 5 deals alone. And so that exponential growth, it's really eye opening when you look at that growth curve. And so, that's same kind of guidance that we give to our folks is like, this is what you do in addition to, in conjunction with your day job, right? Mm-hmm. This is the seed that we've sowed, 5 years ago, and saying, okay, I'm going to invest everything that I can into these deals so that it grows exponentially. And then at a certain point, then I can say, okay, once these kind of turn, at a certain point, I can say, okay, now I can walk away from my day job. But a lot of it is doing it in conjunction with your normal kind of W-2 9 to 5 until you get to a point where you're able to sustain yourself.
Exactly. Yep. Same mindset on it. And glad we relate to that. I think a lot of people who get into the real estate space kind of learn that maybe a little bit after they've done a lot of cash flow deals, and they're like, man, what the hell? I have 6 properties and I make money, but it's nothing crazy. How are these real estate investors millionaires and billionaires? Well, because they look at appreciation and depreciation. That's really what gets you there.
Yeah, exactly. So this has been great, Justin. This is such a fantastic discussion. I would love to have you on again. But as we wrap up, I'd love for you to, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners, whether it's, again, a valuable lesson, a piece of advice, upcoming project, or you mentioned a couple of resources that you had. Anything that you want to share with our listeners as we wrap up?
Yeah, if the journey that I talked about is resonating with you and that's the path that you're on and you want to dive into this, I would go to, we have a website for it and an offering. It's called retirewithin10bundle.com. And the 10 is the number. So retirewithin10bundle.com. With that, you're going to get your Retire Within 10 calculator. So you'll put in some basic inputs about yourself, and it will actually show you how fast you can replace your income with passive income. Pretty cool. For most people, it's actually at the 7-year mark I've seen, but almost everybody, it's within 10 years. The second thing is you'll get the top secret investing strategy for sales professionals. So it deep dives into some of the stuff we talked about here today, and you can just get a little bit better grasp of it. And then the third is actually a bonus gift that you'll just have to download to find out what it is. But it's something that's going to mitigate a lot of your risk if you start investing going forward and save you dozens of hours down the road. So again, retirewithin10bundle.com, and then you could download all that stuff there for us. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm very active on LinkedIn. The President's Club Investor is my tag there. Our company is President's Club Investors. So if you type that in, I come up pretty quick.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Justin. This was a fantastic discussion. Again, I'm definitely going to have you on again because I want to dive in deeper into some of the discussion points that we had, and really also look at some of the things that get you excited about kind of this year, next year, what you're going to be working on. Would love to have you on again. Truly inspiring to see what you've done, and wish you ongoing success and keep watching for things that you're doing.
Love it, man. Thanks so much for having me on. This was great.
Great. And for our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Spur Your Wealth podcast. Again, I'm your host, Banam Singh. Remember, your journey to financial freedom begins with knowledge and action, where knowledge is power, but action is a superpower. So until next time, happy investing.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Spur Your Wealth podcast. We hope you enjoyed the valuable insights and inspiration. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and stay updated on future episodes filled with actionable tips and strategies.
If you want more information about our investment projects, visit us at spurequity.com. If you have an inspiring story to share and would like to be a guest on our podcast, email us at podcast@spurequity.com. Until next time, happy investing.